Hey guys, Aaron CybertronVGC here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online regulation VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be featuring one of the best teams in the format right now. This team just won the San Antonio Regional Championships and finished in second place. It was piloted by Tang and Shiliang, who finished in first and second respectively. It is a team that features Calyrex Ice Rider, but you've got support from things like Roaring Moon, Landorus, Water Urshifu, as well as Fire Ogerpon. What makes the team unique is that the EV spreads are way bulkier than you're generally used to seeing on a lot of these Pokemon. For example, the Ogerpon is actually near max HP, max defense, which allows you to survive physical attacks so much more easily, and it makes it an absolute monster into physical restricteds like Calyrex Ice Rider, for example. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. That really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's get into it. If you're interested in trying out the team, the rental code is on the screen, and there's also an accompanying PokePaste down in the description below. This team utilizes two different means of speed control in Tailwind as well as Trick Room, and the unique combination of Roaring Moon plus Calyrex Ice Rider. Roaring Moon is generally seen with restricted Pokemon like Calyrex Shadow Rider as well as Kyogre, and it has not really been paired with Ice Rider very frequently. You also have double redirection with Follow Me, super bulky Fire Ogerpon as well as Amoonguss, and some of the best offensive options in this format with the Water Terra Mystic Water Urshifu as well as the Sheer Force Life Orb Landorus. For some quick context, this team was featured at the San Antonio Regional Championships, which took place at the end of January 2025, and over 600 players competing in the Masters division, and was the first major of Reg G after returning to this format in North America. Tang ended up winning his third regional championship using this team, and his team building partner, Shiliang, ended up finishing in second place. Justin and Shiliang are two of the most well-known players in North American VGC, and it was really cool to see an exact mirror match in the finals. It has been a long time since we've seen that happen in competitive VGC. I also co-streamed this entire event, by the way, so if you want to see me commentate over the finals and all of the other games and just watch a long stream, I'll link both of the VODs down in the description below. It was really cool to be able to watch this live with all of you. I had a lot of fun doing it, and co-streaming is something that I'm definitely interested in doing more of in the future, and so if you get the chance to check out the VOD, let me know what you think. But overall, this team was really well positioned into the metagame because, first of all, you just have so much damage across the board. Calyrex Ice Rider, I think, in general, just feels so crazy because you're really bulky and you're able to just Glacial Lance, and even Pokemon that resist Glacial Lance are still taking a solid 20-30%. If you think of common types and terras to deal with Calyrex, Fire and Steel are both really common, but of course you can hit those for super effective damage with your own high horsepower or with damage coming out from Landorus or Urshifu, for example. Overall, Amoonguss also, I think, is really well positioned into the metagame, and a lot of teams, I feel like, did not respect this Pokemon a lot, and so Amoonguss, with the ability to put things to sleep, also being able to heal your Calyrex Ice Rider, Fire Ogerpon with the bulk that it has, and the amount of offense that you has makes for a really deadly team. So just wanted to provide some quick context. Breaking down the individual Pokemon, the first one to highlight is Calyrex Ice Rider. Calyrex Ice Rider is straightforward in terms of its moveset, but the main thing to note about this Ice Rider is that you've got some speed investment. The 116 speed EVs allow you to outspeed Pokemon like Landorus, Therian max speed under Tailwind, and so it covers well for the Pokemon in around like the base 90 to 100 speed range, and sometimes, you know, if you're up against like non-max speed Ogerpon, then if you set up Tailwind, your Ice Rider can also outpace them. This Ice Rider also has Fairy Terra. Sometimes you'll see people use Terras like Water, Fire, Grass, even Dragon, for example. I've even run into a lot of Dark Terra Calyrexes recently on ladder. Fairy Terra in particular is nice because, of course, it allows you to just become immune to Draco Meteor from Miraidon, and so it definitely improves your Miraidon matchup because then they have to play a guessing game. And with Landorus on this team as well, it's really hard to go for a consistent attack that's doing a lot of damage, right? If you Electro Drift, well, Landorus is just going to be immune to it. If you Draco Meteor, Fairy Terra just covers for it. Otherwise, fairly straightforward. With this Calyrex, you obviously want to just be clicking Glacial Lance most of the time, and you have this really strong Trick Room option. To support the Ice Rider, you've got one of the most unique spreads on this team, which is Fire Ogerpon. This is near max HP, max defense Ogerpon, which is a spread that I've personally never seen before on this Pokemon. And we even saw this survive in Ivy Cudgel from Rock Ogerpon in the semifinals of the regional championship. It's super bulky, and this allows you to basically have a really positive matchup into all the physical attackers in the format. You think about Pokemon like Urshifu, Rillaboom opposing Calyrexes. Ogerpon is so powerful powerful into those. Fire Terra also still turns this into an absolute monster in terms of offense. You can Fire Terra, for example, and still one-shot opposing Calyrex Ice Riders, and so one of the really cool things about this Ogerpon is its ability to play defense with Follow Me as well as offense should you go for that Terra. Horn Leech here is used over something like Power Whip or Wood Hammer because you already don't have a ton of attack investment, so the idea is with this amount of bulk you can actually sustain yourself and heal, and this is going to be way less offensive, but you can catch so many people off guard with this really, really unique EV spread. Ogerpon plus Calyrex I think is one of my favorite leads with this team because you pressure with redirection into Trick Room, or you just pressure with immediate offense right from the beginning of the game. The other redirection user on this team, of course, is Amoonguss, and this is fairly straightforward. The main thing that I'll note is right now Sludge Bomb Amoonguss is everywhere. People like Sludge Bomb Amoonguss because when you go for Spore, you'll often force Grass Terra, so then Sludge Bomb hits for super effective damage and can often get, for example, 3-hit knockouts on a Pokemon and just be disruptive. Pollen Puff, however, is really, really nice with this team because you have bulk on everything, basically, and Calyrex Ice Rider plus Amoonguss under Trick Room is so strong where you can put things to sleep, and as people try to stall out your Trick Room, you can just heal your Calyrex Ice Rider back up with Pollen Puff. So Sludge Bomb obviously really viable move as well, but with this team having as much bulk, Pollen Puff just is able to really help you sustain. The main thing I'll note here is that you've got the Covert Cloak rather than something like Rocky Helmet. Covert Cloak just means that you can lead the Amoonguss with a lot more confidence. Obviously there's a lot of fake out in the format with Rillaboom and Incineroar, and so Amoonguss with that Covert Cloak can be really disruptive. Now, it's pretty common for you to run into, for example, safety goggles in this format, especially from Incineroar, which I just mentioned, but one of the cool things is you've got the Roaring Moon on this team. This Roaring Moon is so helpful into Calyrex Shadow Rider. Generally, Ice Rider struggles against Shadow Rider because, of course, it just threatens you with a super effective Astro Barrage. You can't one-hit KO them in return, but Roaring Moon here is really nice because, first of all, you are immune to Psychic-type damage, you resist Astro Barrage, so unless they have something like Fairy Terra Draining Kiss, Roaring Moon has a really positive matchup into Shadow Rider alone. In fact, it's so good into Shadow Riders that a lot of times in the Shadow Rider matchup, you actually don't even bring Ice Rider, and you play a more Roaring Moon-centric game. This Roaring Moon will get a speed boost, of course, from the Photosynthesis, allowing you to set up a fast Tailwind. This is really nice because a lot of these Pokemon are actually not like max speed, and so getting the Tailwind up just ensures that you can outpace most of the format, and you crucially have Flying Terra Acrobatics as well as the knockoff here. The point that I was trying to make earlier is that with all the safety goggles in the format, you've got knockoff on Roaring Moon, so you can remove those goggles and Spore Pokemon. One of the things I like doing with this team is Roaring Moon Amoonguss, and often people will like fake out into Amoonguss because of the Covert Cloak. You get to ignore it, and then you can just remove Incineroar safety goggles and then just put it to sleep. Roaring Moon, of course, can be really strong if you're dealing super effective damage, but if it's intimidated and if you don't have that Flying Terra, your damage output is not that great, so you have to be careful about how you position this Pokemon, but setting up the speed control is generally really valuable for this team. To round things out, you've got two really offensive options in Landorus as well as Urshifu. It's important to note here that you have a ton of bulk on both of these Pokemon, so you'll definitely be surviving more attacks than usual, and I think the bulk on the team single-handedly can often win you the game, and even though these Pokemon are standard in the builder, how you train them is really, really important, and I do think these EV spreads go such a long way. The Landorus here, of course, crucially is going to be running Earth Power and Sludge Bomb, which are standard. Sometimes you'll see people use Substitute. Sandsphere Storm is not the most consistent attack. It's only 80% accuracy, so the odds of you missing one when you use it is obviously fairly decent, but the reality is that it's just such a strong move to click, and ideally you want to put yourself in situations where you say, look, even if I get one miss, it's still fine because I'll still like knock out the other Pokemon. There are a lot of teams that just have like very few resistances to ground in general, so if you put yourself in good positions, then with the bulk, you can even afford often to miss a Sandsphere. We actually saw Justin Tang, who won San Antonio Regionals, double miss Sandsphere in one of his stream games, and he still was able to win that match, and so this is just a really strong Pokemon in the meta. Water Terra is really valuable because, of course, it allows you to survive water-type attacks from the opposing side, and ice-type attacks as well, so this is a really good defensive Terra into things like Urshifu as well as Chien-Pao. Finally, you've got Urshifu here on this team. This is just still one of the most broken Pokemon in the format. The main thing that I want to note is that in this tournament, a lot of people were using either Grass Terra Urshifu, Safety Goggles, or Taunt. Of course, Amoonguss now is one of the most common Pokemon in the format, so you need Amoonguss answers, and Taunt Urshifu is really, really nice. The Water Terra, I think, is actually really important on this team because it allows you to get one-hit knockouts with Surging Strikes that you otherwise won't get, and so I think, yeah, if you're running Grass Terra, then you don't need Taunt, but without Grass Grass Terra, taunt is really necessary in order to shut down opposing Amoonguss, and opposing Amoonguss can be a really, really big pain. So manual taunt is something that's definitely been picking up, especially on Urshifu. Otherwise, the general goal is simple. Of course, just go for Water Terra Surging Strikes, which can often just two-shot like everything in the format, and try to protect your Urshifu. A lot of different ways that you can play with this team. I highly recommend you watch all of the stream games from the 2 finalists, of course, of San Antonio. Some leads that I really like include, for example, Ogerpon plus Calyrex or Amoonguss plus Calyrex if I'm looking to set up Trick Room in the early game, or just have redirection to support Calyrex. If you want to play really offensively, you can go with like Roaring Moon plus really any of Urshifu, Ogerpon, Landorus, or Ice Rider. I think those are generally some of my favorite leads. But double redirection here, plus 2 means of speed control, plus so much damage means that you have a lot of flexibility with this team. So in terms of things to watch out for, Justin mentioned specifically that there were 2 comps that he did not love going up against and was hoping to dodge at San Antonio Regionals. The first is Miraidon plus Dondozo. That's obviously not a very common team comp, but it did get top 8 at the World Championships. Dondozo in general is interesting because it obviously exerts a lot of like pressure against this team, and so for Miraidon Dondozo, you can obviously set up the electric terrain, so you can't even spore the Dondozo. Against Dondozo teams, I actually often think about dropping Calyrex Ice Rider specifically because I think it ends up being a liability into Dozo, but that's one comp to think about. And then Zamazenta can still be fairly annoying because of course you get the defense boost, and Calyrex just is very bad, I would say, into Zamazenta. I've also played against like Iron Defense Body Press Zamazenta, which has been a total nightmare since this team is generally pretty physically oriented. Otherwise, some other things that I have run into that have caused me issues: ways to shut down Amoonguss. So if you have taunt, that can be really, really annoying, especially in the closed team sheet environment. Grass Terras, obviously. I think Amoonguss is a Pokemon that's actually a lot better in the open team sheet environment, and it's still very good in closed team sheet, but in open team sheet, knowing your opponent's counterplay makes this a lot easier to use, whereas in closed team sheet, sporing into a surprise Grass Terra, sporing or getting taunted by something can really, really hinder you. Rock Ogerpon has been a really annoying Pokemon to fight against, and you do have this really defensive Ogerpon, which of course can go for that follow me and redirect and survive an IB Cudgel. I think in the couple of times I played against Rock Ogerpon, I've got crit like 3 different times with this Pokemon, and so that's felt really bad. And then the other thing about Rock Ogerpon is you just threaten with neutral to super effective damage on basically everything on this team. Incineroar inherently isn't a huge problem for this team, but I've had games where Roaring Moon just becomes really useless because like Incineroar intimidates the Roaring Moon, and Roaring Moon just has like very little damage afterwards. Moon obviously does not love going up against ice type damage because you don't have a defensive Terra against it. So Champao, for example, I played against a Kyurem White and Ninetales, and then like the ice blizzard spam was really scary to fight against from there, and so that's obviously fairly niche, but just giving you an example of a typing that Roaring Moon doesn't love going up against. And then otherwise, I think I have also really struggled against Kyogre hyper offense teams. I think against the Calm Mind variants, it's not as scary because Urshifu can just like Water Terra Surging Strikes the bulky Kyogres, and in rain you often can actually like 2-hit KO it. But if you are up against hyper offense Kyogre, like I played against multiple Tornadus Kyogre Champao teams, and that team actually got top 16 at San Antonio Regionals. With hyper offense Kyogre, you can just set up Tailwind with Tornadus and Water Spout, and the combination of water type damage like Water Spout from an offensive Kyogre plus Bleak Wind Storm is really hard for this team to deal with. I had one game where I led Roaring Moon Urshifu, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go Tailwind and then like Water Terra Surging Strikes. They went Tailwind Water Terra with Kyogre, and my Urshifu just got completely popped before I was able to move. One of the things to think about on this team is that you have much less speed investment than normal on Landorus, Urshifu, and Ogerpon, so that does mean that Pokemon in the base 90 to 110 speed range can outpace you. What that means is you have to be really careful when you're going up against opposing Landorus, opposing Urshifus, opposing Ogerpons, because without the speed control from Trick Room or Tailwind, it means that you often will get outpaced, and that's something to watch out for as well. But I played actually a lot with this team because it felt not like the most intuitive to me, and I was like, I really, really want to get the hang of it, and those were all just a couple of things that gave me trouble in my time playing with it. Ooh, we have Groudon, Gouging Fire, Venusaur, Sableye, Raging Bolt, as well as the Scream Tail. So it's cool because Shiliang Tang, the second place finisher from the San Antonio Regionals, actually went up against Sun in the semifinals. Now that Sun was Koridon plus Entei rather than Groudon plus Gouging Fire, but that's cool to see. We did see some Gouging Fires pop up more recently, and I actually recently featured Sableye on the channel with Altaria, so if you want to go check out that video, I'll link it down in the description below, paired with Groudon. I think the first thing to note here is that Glacial Lance from Ice Rider should be really powerful. I think Ogerpon should be really valuable for us in this matchup because of its ability to just take damage fairly well. Landorus probably needs to come out because of the Raging Bolt. I'm inclined to go with something like Ice Rider, Ogerpon lead, Lando in the back. Could be Roaring Moon. I don't know if I love that. Ursh into a Sun matchup doesn't seem great. Could be a Mungus because I can spore things under Trick Room if I set it up. I think I lean towards a Mungus here. This also gives me Pollen Puff to heal up Ice Rider. So, let's see. Roaring Moon is just a liability into Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt's often going to have booster energy. Could be Assault Vested, but basically they do have Sun on this team, so it might be Life Orb or Assault Vest rather than booster energy. Actually, yeah, booster I would expect to be on the Scream Tail because it's more important for that to get the boost. But either way, it's like our best offense into Raging Bolt is just knockoff. Scream Tails and Sableye, interesting. Okay. I have to be very careful here because you have Encore and Disable. Does Scream Tail get Hypnosis? Like, I wouldn't think so. Yeah, there's that Photosynthesis. Mainly worried about Will-O-Wisp from this. I think to start, I don't mind just going for Glacial Lance and Ivy Cudgel. I'm really curious what Scream Tail wants to do here, honestly. Okay, it's going to be Gravity coming out immediately. Yep. Oh, it's saying Scream Tail. Okay, that makes sense to me. Yep. So instead of the Altaria, which I had featured recently, it is going to be Scream Tail putting things to sleep instead. That checks out. Okay. We'll get Glacial Lance off here. I think in this matchup, I just accept that they're going to put me to sleep. Eject button? Oh, very cool. Okay. Free switch it into Groudon now, right? Which will set up the Sun. Yep. I do have a Mungus in the back, so I can use it to redirect Sing. I think if Calyrex gets an early wake, or sorry, if Ogre gets an early wake, that's also very advantageous for us. Here I'm down to go for Protect. And Cudgel into Scream Tail. This is max HP, max defense on the Ogerpon. I've, by the way, been running into Choice Scarf Groudons recently. It's going to be Fire Terra here, though, okay? Fire Terra is fine because it means Landorus now can hit you for super effective damage. If Ogerpon wakes up here, I think we're in incredible shape. But let's see. They're not going to protect the Scream Tail. Probably just going for a Sing onto Ice Rider. Yep. Turn 2 of Sleep for Ogerpon. Do we wake up? Nice. Immediate wake. Cudgel here should just eliminate Scream Tail. Beautiful. That's out of the way. We can also take advantage of them setting up Gravity, by the way, because it applies to both sides. So that means my Sandsear Storm from Landorus is far more consistent now, which is awesome. Restless Blades comes out. Look how well the Ogerpon takes that. The near max HP, max defense, plus defense nature Ogerpon doesn't even take half from Precipice Blades from Groudon. Incredible. It also confirms they're not Choice Scarf. By the way, if I didn't wake up with Ogerpon there, I think a play I would have considered going into this next turn is actually Follow Me plus Trick Room, because then I can get Ice Rider plus Sableye under Trick Room. Or sorry, Ice Rider plus Amoonguss under Trick Room. But they're going to bring out Sableye here. We've got Lando in the back. I think here I'm happy to actually just Glacial Lance and go for Ivy Cudgel into Sableye. But right now, the Ogerpon EV spread is really demonstrating its worth, and to me, this is one of the coolest things about this composition. So they're actually not going to go for a Fake Out or a priority move with Sableye, implying they're going for Foul Play. I'll gladly take that as we just eliminate Sableye. And this is actually one of the downsides of having a faster Seeing user. So when I had featured Sableye plus Groudon, we had Altaria on that team, and the Altaria was really interesting because it often would actually put things to sleep afterwards as Gouging Fire comes out. Okay, so one thing we want to think about right now is just stalling out the Sun and then using Landorus to just Sandsear Storm. It could be something like Howl plus Precipice Blades right now. I think if I get Trick Room up, Amoonguss can just Spore things, which is good. We definitely need to respect Howl. It could also be like Breaking Swipe. Ogre isn't really going to do much for me right now. I think I'm down to go for Trick Room here. And a Follow Me. This is just in case they go Howl Heat Crash. Okay, it's going to be Breaking Swipe. It's probably Breaking Swipe plus Heat Crash, but honestly, that's okay with me because I get Lando plus Amoonguss out now. Oh, they go for Precipice Blades. Okay. I don't know if that KOs us. Yeah. They may have been worried about clicking Heat Crash in case I Terra'd, but I was also totally fine losing Ice Rider in that position. But now I get Amoonguss out, which is fantastic for us. I've got Water Terra. I don't know if Gouging Fire is running Protect, so that's the main question. I think this turn I'm happy to just Protect with both Pokemon to see what they want to do. If Gouging Fire is running Burning Bulwark, then I can actually Spore it. But I still have Terra available to me, and don't forget we have Water Terra with Landorus, so I can Water Terra that defensively in this endgame. So I'm leaning towards committing Terra on Landorus instead. Okay, just Fire Punch coming out here. Yep. Maybe a Flare Blitz. Yeah. Cool. Now I have stalled out the Sun. Great. I'm not even sure Fire Punch KOs Amoonguss, to be honest. Gravity also wears off. I think I'm happy to just go for High Horsepower here into Groudon and Spore into Gouging. Maybe with Terra you get the knockout, but if I get the Gouging to sleep, which we do here, fantastic. High Horsepower connects as well, super effective damage, almost just gets the knockout out right there. They're going to commit Fire Terra Fire Punch here into Amoonguss. Let's see if that one-shots us. Yeah, it does not. Nice. Without the Sun, just not that powerful. And then Gouging takes a turn of sleep here. Beautiful. This now means I can go for Glacial Lance and then Pollen Puff into Calyrex in case they want to protect to stall out Trick Room. But I've got Landorus in the endgame anyway, so we should be good. I think it's really unintuitive to bring Amoonguss into a matchup when your opponent has Sun, but it's just such a valuable Pokemon on this team because of its ability to operate under Trick Room and offer redirection. So Glacial comes out here, and if you watched the semifinals from the San Antonio Regional Championships, like Amoonguss was used to help actually even just set up Trick Room. Okay. Or sorry, it was Fire Ogerpon that was actually being led to help set up Trick Room. But what part of what makes this team so valuable is having this like double redirection support, right? So it's like Fire Ogerpon can help set up Trick Room and then Amoonguss can come out after. So here's another Pollen Puff. Okay. And now single target Glacial Lance with the attack boost should just get the knockout here. Perfect. Scream Tail was really cool to see, though. Yeah, I was wondering how it would be able to put Pokemon to sleep, and the answer was Sing. The thing with Sing, though, is when you are clicking it, first of all, it's not guaranteed to hit under gravity. It's like 91% accuracy, so you can miss. And then if you're moving first, it means that your opponent has a chance to wake up immediately right after on the next turn. So we did get lucky in this game by getting the immediate wake up. 3 turns sleep definitely could have made things a little bit spookier, but I think one of the upsides for us in this matchup was that the Precipice Blades was like a 3-hit knockout onto our Pokemon. And so with the Ogerpon EV spread, I knew I could even take a Precipice Blades, or I could take 2 Precipice Blades, which was really, really nice. But we didn't even bring Landorus in this game, but Landorus was designed to come out and like ideally just click Sandsear Storm, double knockout onto Gouging Fire plus the Groudon. I could just Water Terra, survive any damage from their end, and just KO them in return. So there was that position where I set up Trick Room, but my opponent obviously could have knocked me out that turn with a Heat Crash, but I didn't really mind that because then I get Landorus plus Amoonguss. I can just double protect, the Sun is over, and then Landorus with Water Terra should just be able to win the game from that point. So that was actually the win condition I was playing towards, but I figured setting up Trick Room is and bad because Ice Rider plus Amoonguss also wins under Trick Room, and so it ended up being that win condition. But Landorus was actually the main Pokemon in my head. I was thinking I was going to end the game with once we saw Fire Terra from Groudon. But I have been seeing more Groudon teams on ladder recently with Sableye. I've seen one with Iron Valiant in particular as well, and so it seems like Groudon usage has definitely been picking up both on ladder and in tournament play. This is a really interesting Ice Rider team. We've got Annihilape, Urshifu, Amoonguss, Indeedee, and Raging Bolt. Obviously, when you see Annihilape, you have to respect the Choice Scar Final Gambit combo. With this team, you would normally expect something like Annihilape, Calyrex Ice Rider lead. Coaching, by the way, is also a possibility on Annihilape. I'm interested in something like Urshifu, Ogerpon, Indeedee, Ice Rider. I have to be a little bit careful about Raging Bolt, I think, by committing to this and not bringing Landorus. Bolt can just be a little bit scary damage-wise. But basically in this matchup with Urshifu and Fire Ogerpon, we have a really good Ice Rider matchup. Glacial Lance just does not do very much damage to us. If Trick Room gets set up, then Amoonguss is really solid for us, which is why I want that in the back. And it is going to be Annihilape Calyrex. Okay. So with this, I'm leaning towards Follow Me turn 1. If they Gambit, great. They might U-turn out. I think I can Follow Me and Taunt, honestly, because I think here it's the angle for them to Final Gambit and Trick Room, and then you bring out Amoonguss and Spore. But if I Taunt you, then you can't Spore, so yeah. I don't mind trading Annihilape for Ogerpon if it means taunting you. Oh, but they switch. I wonder if that's Amoonguss coming in for that side. Might be Indeedee, could be Bolt. Great. Amoonguss gets taunted. Awesome. I'll gladly take that. My guess is it's Rocky Helmet there, if they're switching in like that. Yep. And I think you have to, like, if you're making that switch, you always Final Gambit into the Ogerpon, because otherwise you risk me tearing and going for Ivy Cudgel onto Amoonguss. But like I said, even though Ogerpon is a fantastic Pokemon here, I don't mind losing it. I do think maybe in that situation I could have switched out, but then I risk a Final Gambit just KOing Urshifu, and I think Ursh is too good to give up in this matchup. So now I can bring out my Ice Rider. And a taunted Amoonguss is just really, really not that strong for them. Now you know I have Taunt as well, so the question is, what do you do with Ice Rider, right? Probably just Glacial, but I think I still don't want them to set up Trick Room. I think Amoonguss probably pivots now, so then the question is what they would switch into. Urshifu makes a lot of sense. I think here, because I think Amoonguss needs to switch, I'm happy to just Glacial and Water Terra Surging. But they stay in with Amoonguss, okay? Could be Side Pollen Puff, could be Sludge Bomb. Are they tearing Amoonguss though? Because if not, like, Glacial could just KO you depending on how you're trained. Yeah, it is going to be a Terra, okay. The lack of a switch makes me think that Raging Bolt is their final Pokemon. But Trick Room Pollen Puff here would be a solid play by them. You should get Calyrex to around like 30 to 40% here though with this combo. I wonder if actually Surging plus High Horsepower would have just gotten the knockout. My guess is no. And Glacial covers for switch outs anyway. Cool. Glacial Lance. Okay. Nice. No Trick Room. Beautiful. And even if you side Pollen Puff, I still KO you with the combo next turn. Yep. Fantastic. Because we got you down around 10%, right? So you're still taunted for one last turn. So I can just Surging into you once more. And Glacial covers for switch-ins once again. Very nice. Well, that was a fast game, but I think this game highlights the power of Taunt on the Urshifu. I wasn't intending even on taunting the Amoonguss, but that's the thing. I think this is one of the reasons why Taunt is really, really picking up in terms of usage right now on Urshifu, because Amoonguss is one of the most meta Pokemon, and it's been super, super dominant. If your team does not have Amoonguss answers, you're not going to be in for a good time in this format and the current metagame. So having Taunt Urshifu is a really, really valuable answer in shutting down Trick Room as well as shutting down Amoonguss. And so I was mainly trying to deny Trick Room because I thought they were always going to Final Gambit in turn 1. And what we really didn't want is an Amoonguss out under Trick Room being able to spore everything. So my idea was, look, if I deny the Trick Room, then if Amoonguss hits the field, I just get to taunt that as well. But this is a completely different matchup with Taunt, and it turns from a positive one to, I think, a negative one. And so this is one of the many reasons why you'll want to run Taunt in the format. We are up against Kyogre here. Normally you'll see Roaring Moon, actually, or Iron Jugulis over the Landorus slot on the opposing side, but otherwise this is one of the strongest ways to run Kyogre right now. Grass Terra on Kyogre with grassy terrain support from Rillaboom, leftovers. So one of the things we can do here is force Grass Terra to Kyogre and then hit it for super effective damage with our Ice Rider. All of our Pokemon are actually bringable into this matchup, which is kind of cool. But I'm thinking Roaring Moon Amoonguss. With this lead, I can also knock off and then Spore, which is pretty sweet. So these two, Ice Rider. Lando's not that great into Kyogre. And Fire Ogerpon is like okay, but because we are the super defensive Fire Ogerpon set here and not the very offensive set. Like if we were very offensive with Ogerpon, what we could do is like force Kyogre to Terra and then Fire Terra, Ivy Cudgel, Grass Terra, Kyogre if we've gotten some chip damage onto it. But I think basically Roaring Moon plus Amoonguss is really disruptive. Even though Ice Beam is scary, you're not going to get us with knockouts that quickly. And then Amoonguss can also Pollen Puff. It can force a Terra out of Kyogre. Forcing a Terra out of Kyogre is a big deal because then I can also Acrobatics you for super effective damage. And if you lead Instant, for example, I can knock off Spore you. But it's going to be Rilla plus Kyogre here. So the question here is whether or not Kyogre feels forced to Terra immediately, because they might just fake out Amoonguss turn 1. The best play for them to make here is to just, Terra Kyogre immediately. But like I said, if you do that, it opens the door for Calyrex. In this position, I don't mind going for... I want to knock off. They could always switch an Incin and then protect Kyogre, I think is one possible play. I think I'd actually like to knock off into the Rilla slot. Spore into Kyogre. Yeah, if this is Instant coming out, this play works out really nicely for me, I would say. Cool. I almost thought about knockoff and Spore into the Rilla slot, but I think this is still fine. I would expect Kyogre to Terra, but if we remove Goggles on Instant, it's a really big deal. Because it means with the Covert Cloak, now I can actually put Incineroar to sleep next turn. I'm assuming it's Goggles here. Perfect. Yeah, I figure here, like, Rilla's just in such a bad spot. The only thing you can really do is Fake Out, and even if you do, you're still at risk. So, felt like I could potentially capitalize off that. This could switch back out right into Rillaboom right now. I've got the Covert Cloak on this, and so I can actually avoid your Fake Out here, which is a really big deal. I lean towards going for Knockoff here into Kyogre and Spore into Incin. Kyogre switches. Great. Into Amoonguss. So we're getting rid of all their items right now, which I'll gladly take. Knockoff comes out. Rocky Helmet, which is good for us for the sake of Urshifu. And they're going to burn into the Roaring Moon. But I think that's okay here. Like, basically, they're trying to play really carefully with Kyogre, and I think, like, not Terra it, but eventually they're going to have to Terra it, I think, to deal with the Amoonguss. My Urshifu, by the way, like, with Surging Strikes in rain, also does a ton of damage, so that's one thing to pay attention to in this matchup. This also means with the burn, you no longer can put my Roaring Moon to sleep, obviously, which is pretty nice. This turn, I really would love to switch in Ice Rider or Urshifu, which is a question of whether or not they end up sporing into this slot. Could go Acrobatics here and Pollen Puff. I'm actually not opposed to that here. Because if I were my opponent, I'd be fishing for a switch in on my end. So Instant takes turn 1 asleep here. Yep, they try to spore into the... Does it actually, would it show a message if it spored into a Amoonguss? No, it would show a message if it's spored into Roaring Moon, right? So I'm pretty sure they tried to spore the Amoonguss slot. Actually, I'm not sure it shows a message onto either. Not 100% sure there. Anyway, good damage there. I can see this now pivoting out. I am happy to just acrobatics this slot. I could see it switching out into Kyogre, so I'm actually thinking about sporing it. Okay, now this could be Rilla coming in, obviously. But if it's Kyogre, it's amazing. Oh, nice. Let's go. Huge. Their team revolves so heavily around Kyogre that I think putting it to sleep like this is very, very good for us. And now I can angle to bring out my Urshifu. So what I wanted to be really careful about this last turn was just like, it felt like such a good position to switch an Urshifu or Ice Rider, but I knew I'd be vulnerable to a sleep on their end. And since I had revealed my willingness to go Acrobatics Pollen Puff, like the Amoonguss actually took a lot of damage, right? So I figured my opponent might consider switching. And I was like, look, if I get the Kyogre on the switch in, it's huge. So that's obviously really good for us. I've got 1 turn of rain left, 1 turn of grassy terrain. I can knock off, but I think at this point I do want to get my offense out onto the field, so I'm going to let Urshifu hit the field here. And Rage Powder. I'm actually thinking about double switching, honestly, since Kyogre has to take a turn to sleep right now. Yeah, I actually don't hate that. Because basically, like, part of what makes these Kyogre teams so difficult to deal with is how much offense they have to offer, but also how much defense they have to offer. And specifically what I mean is you have double fake out cycling and so much recovery. So I want 2 things now on a field I can threaten with maximum amounts of damage. Okay. Kyogre takes its first turn to sleep here. This also means no rain, which means Kyogre is substantially weaker now. And Instant does actually stay asleep here, which is great. So rain stops. No more grassy terrain either. But this now means that I can pressure with Surging Strikes plus Glacial Lance here. The main thing here is I think like Instant maybe goes for Terra here. So I actually have Taunt available to me. I think I actually like taunting here more and Glacial Lancing. Okay, they switched. That's fine by me. Into Amoonguss. Great. And I think Ice Rider can start snowballing the game now a little bit. We've definitely gotten pretty fortunate with the sleep turns, like no early wake-ups on their end. Glacial comes out. I thought from their position this last turn it made sense to potentially Terra the Incineroar and try to get a Will-O-Wisp off. So that's what I was mainly trying to cover for. But now you're taunted with the Amoonguss, which is great for us. Kyogre here, still in a pretty bad spot in my opinion. I've still got a Amoonguss in the back. This could obviously switch back out into Incineroar. I could take a guaranteed knockout onto the Amoonguss slot this turn, which isn't bad, but I'm also thinking of trying to get damage onto Kyogre. Going for Surging Strikes here and Glacial. The main thing here... Wow, we actually made our opponent forfeit. Pretty early forfeit, but I think I was in really strong control of that game with the taunt. Yeah, I think the main thing here is we were really disruptive in the early game. We got rid of the safety goggles. We got rid of the Rocky helmet. We put the Kyogre to sleep, right? And I got so much damage and finally got both of my offensive options out on the field. Part of I think one of the weaknesses of these Kyogre comps sometimes is when you run out of turns of rain and you don't get any Calm Minds up, right? So, because the Kyogre's offense is going to be Origin Pulse, Calm Mind, Ice Beam, Protect, right? So, Origin Pulse and Ice Beam are going to be the main attacks. You're not going to want to do that into Ice Rider or Urshifu. And a neutral Origin Pulse outside of rain without a Mystic Water just does very little damage to us, right? Like, it's 4-hit KOing us. And so, I'm willing to play the long run, right? Because, like, the combo of Surging plus Icicle, not Icicle Crash, the Glacial Lance is enough to basically knock out everything on their end. So even though the Amoonguss hung on, it's fine because like the Kyogre, if you switch out, then whatever comes in eats up Surging Strikes plus Glacial Lance, right? So we get the knockout. The Taunt on Amoonguss means that slot is rendered completely useless, right? And so the best play for them would have been maybe to switch Amoonguss back out into Incin, and then go for like an Origin Pulse. But even if you do that, like I don't take that much damage, and I'm slowly whittling away on your end. Ooh, we have Dondozo Tatsu here with Dragonite, Flutter, Chi-Yu, and Miraidon. This was one of the 3 teams I lost to at the 2024 World Championships. It ended up getting top 8 at the tournament, losing in a really close set against Luca Cherrybelly, who eventually became World Champion. And this team was in a favorable position, actually, to win against Luca as well. I think Miraidon ended up committing to like a really weak Dazzling Gleam rather than clicking Draco Meteor twice. And so in that endgame, like it was actually favorable for this team against the World Champion team, which is kind of wild to think about. So it's interesting because against Dozo, I actually often straight up drop the Ice Rider, but Ice Rider isn't terrible here into Miraidon, right? Like against Dozo, we can knock off, which is nice. I normally want to bring Urshifu. Flutter Chi-Yu is one of the main leads to respect. I'm thinking Miraidon plus Ursh. Sorry, not Miraidon. Roaring Moon plus Ursh. This is tricky. Like, I'm more used to the Shadow Rider Dozo teams. I think Ogerpon. Yeah, I'm actually going to drop the Ice Rider here. It's kind of a gamble. The main reason to drop Ice Rider here is that it's just really bad into Dondozo. Dondozo takes basically no damage from Glacial Lance or High Horsepower when combined with Tatsugiri, even when not combined, to be honest. And I just am not going to be able to really do anything with Ice Rider, and I'd rather have more offense. I'm going to go Chi-Yu Miraidon, okay. I think this is fairly favorable. I do pressure with Tailwind Surging immediately, but they could, like, Dazzling here. So the other play I'm thinking about is just double Protect turn 1. It is Assault Vest Miraidon. Yeah, I think, like, I'm glad I didn't bring... This is Sash to you, if I remember correctly. So Tailwind, Water, Terra, Surging could work, but obviously they could just Electro Drift into this. I could Tailwind switch into Landorus. Leaning towards double protecting here, though. Wanna see if they potentially Terra, but Chi-Yu switches. Okay, that could be Dozo coming out in that slot. Yep. Fine by me. No Terra from Miraidon. Okay. So we double protect. I'm gonna Volt Switch into us. They could rip Draco now, but I'm leaning towards switching to Landorus here. I think I want to Tailwind here. Switch in Lando. It's actually not a bad position to click Draco Meteor right now, in my opinion. Or obviously just like Fairy Terra Dazzling Gleam. Nice, that's a big Protect to see from Dozo. If they Volt Switch here, that's fantastic for us. I get my Tailwind up. Nice. It's a really big turn for us. Okay, nice. This could be where they combine into Tatsu now, so I don't mind going for knockoff here. Knockoff into you. And switch back out into Urshifu is what I'm thinking. I could also just Earth Power, honestly. That doesn't actually do, like, the worst amount of damage. Knock off Water Terra. Earth Power. Nice. If this is Tatsu coming out, I'm very happy. Beautiful. Okay. Really, really good start to the game so far, but it's still very far from over. One thing to think about is that I did just Water Terra my Landorus, which means that now Miraidon can go for electric type damage into me. The ideal in this game would be to set up a second Tailwind with Roaring Moon. If we can get to that state, we should just be able to win the game because it is going to be an Assault Vest on the Miraidon. One other thing to think about is positioning Fire Ogerpon correctly so that I'll have it out next to the Landorus for a Follow Me to redirect Electro Drift away from them. There's knockoff. No more leftovers for you. And an Earth Power. They're probably going to go for an Order up here is my guess. No, Wave Crash. Even better. Perfect. Because you take recoil from this. I don't think this survives Acrobatics and Earth Power, to be honest. And we really want to push the tempo here and get one more knockout. And then set up a second Tailwind. If they Grass Terra, then Acrobatics becomes super effective. They're just going to protect here. It's fine. And I think a super effective Acro plus a resist their Earth Power probably still knocks out the Dozo. Okay. I do wonder if they consider terroring here. The main question I have is whether or not an Acrobatics plus a Sludge Bomb here would actually get the knockout. But I do think Acro should do enough where Earth Power finishes it off if you Terra. And they're not going to Terra. Cool. Beautiful. Dondozo's eliminated. And crucially, I get to set up a second Tailwind as well, which is really nice. Tatsu gets ejected. No more terrain. They're going to bring Miraidon back in. I think here there's not too much downside to double protecting here. I mainly think this could Terra. I also could just Tailwind. I mean, I risk what? A double knockout right now, like Draco plus Volt Switch. I don't hate double protecting here, though. Yeah. Nice. We get the Terra commit. Perfect. We're getting to an endgame now, because I assume it's Miraidon Terraring, where the Urshifu in... And it's Fairy Terra, yeah. The Urshifu in Tailwind should be able to just Surging Strikes everything. As long as I get a Sludge Bomb off into Miraidon, I don't mind if you Draco KO my Roaring Moon. Tatsugiri is not a huge problem for our Dondozo, especially if they commit a Draco Meteor into us. I should go for Dragon Pulse here, okay. Dazzling Gleam Tatsu. Oh, wow. Interesting. Well, that's a little bit scarier, I suppose. But, yeah, I'm going to just go for the Tailwind here into the Sludge Bomb onto you. I'll likely lose both Pokemon here, but that's fine, because then I get Urshifu plus Fire Ogerpon out next to each other, and multiple turns of Tailwind to work with. And you can't stall out the second Tailwind quickly enough, essentially. So this should do about half. Yep. This doesn't KO us, right? We live on 1 HP. Wow. But they end up, okay, swapping it around. Dazzling Gleam comes out. Oh, no, wait. The Tatsu was the one going for... It was the Miraidon Dazzling Gleaming, right? Yeah, I was like, why would a Tatsugiri Dazzling Gleam? I was so confused for a second. But obviously, as you see, a Choice Scarf on the Tatsu. Yeah. I just got super mixed up for a second there. Ursh comes out. Tatsu is stuck clicking Dazzling Gleam. Or sorry, Dragon Pulse. Not Dazzling Gleam. I can just Surging. That'll KO you. I'm happy to just Horn Leech into Tatsu here. Surging into... Actually, I think it's probably safer to go for Follow Me here. Make sure we don't get crit. Although, I don't need crit that. Crit Dragon Pulse shouldn't KO either, honestly, from this position. So I think it's fine to just Horn Leech. And Surging. Yeah, that does so much. Nice. Surging now boosted by Mystic Water, and we've essentially pinned our opponent. I was so confused for a second. I was like, when did Tatsugiri learn Dazzling Gleam? But yeah, Scarf Tatsu is obviously pretty common as well. I'm just so used to Miraidon, obviously moving first before its partner. So Miraidon faints. And this is what I mean by getting that second Tailwind up to make sure we get that extra attack off. Yeah, Dragon Pulse into Ursh there. Yeah, I think we would have survived even without a crit, or even with the crit there, because that did, what, around 120-ish? Just a little bit less. So I can just Horn Leech now. Still 2 turns of Tailwind and Surging here. I think Ice Rider maybe could have been an okay bring into this matchup. I don't know if I would have loved it. Basically, the problem with Ice Rider is it's really weak to Chi-Yu. If I Terra, like, Dondozo just comes out and just makes my Ice Rider completely useless, right? So if I lead Ice Rider, you know, they led Chi-Yu Miraidon, well, I'm just in a pretty bad spot with that Ice Rider. And if I Fairy Terra, then they just pop Dozo and then use Dozo to stall me out. And then the Ice Rider actually becomes a liability. Basically, when I play against Dozo with this team, I always want 2 Pokemon on the field that can do substantial damage to Dondozo. The Roaring Moon wasn't doing the most, but being able to remove the leftovers from Dozo is a really, really big deal in this matchup. So, yeah, I don't think I really would have changed any turn in this game. I think, you know, turn 1, it would have been tempting to, like, Tailwind Surge and stretch Chi-Yu, but I think it's actually pretty important to try to conserve the Urshifu. And I'm surprised they actually didn't want to commit, like, the Fairy Terra immediately and just Dazzling Gleam when they had so much super effective damage. And the fact that they Volt switched onto the Landorus switch-in, it seems like, you know, they really, really wanted to aggressively pop the Urshifu. Since they were Fairy Terra Dazzling, they could have just gotten rid of my Roaring Moon. But the fact they let my Roaring Moon hang around for longer and let me set up that second Tailwind just made it really, really good for us. Rank number 26 here, and it's a Lunala. Whoa. Lunala Indeedee. Whimsicott, Ogerpon, Chi-Yu, Urshifu. Lunala. Expanding Force is really, really scary. It's interesting because the team is really fast-paced, actually. Normally with Lunala, you kind of expect Trick Room. This, I would expect the Meteor Beam set. Really cool to see such a high-ranking Lunala, though. This is not that common of a Pokemon, but... You know, Lunala has been a Pokemon that's like made day 2 of big tournaments, but hasn't had like the deepest runs. And I think it's probably just not consistent enough to like maybe win in this format, like win an entire tournament, but get enough to like make deep runs. But yeah, it's not like a hard Trick Room Lunala team, which is interesting. They also have that Rock Ogerpon, which is really scary. So if anything, we might want to even set up that Trick Room, but I think Roaring Moon is probably a necessity. Roaring Moon. I think Roaring Moon Ursh, actually. Ice Rider. Ogerpon. Yeah. I could bring that Amoonguss. Lando feels weird to not bring here, truthfully. Like, I want Fire Ogerpon for redirection. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Lando's offense is really solid here. My problem with it is I think like breaking Lunala Shadow Shield and KOing it is tough. It also could have Wide Guard here, so it is just going to be Indeedee Lunala. Fairy Terra, Moonblast is certainly a possibility. See if we see a Psychic Seed here. I think I could just go Tailwind Water Terra Surging. Could double protect as well. There's no Psychic Seed here, which I think is very bad news for us because I assume it means you have Rocky Helmet. I just don't know if you have Moonblast, if you have Dazzling Gleam. Follow me. Fairy Terra Moonblast. I'm gonna just double protect here. No Terra though. I would have loved to see a Terra. Okay. Yeah, if they're just going for follow me like that, I feel like it's gotta be Rocky. Okay, we do get them to commit Meteor Beam though, so I'm happy with that. I think if you click Meteor Beam, it means you should have Moongeist Beam Expanding Force, which means you should not have super good offense into my Roaring Moon, which I think is a big deal. The problem is now you get to Expanding Force. Just follow me Expanding Force, right? This feels so hard. I want to like knock off, switch into Calyrex. I guess they don't have to Expanding Force here. They could Moongeist Beam. Our Urshifu is actually bulky, so I would survive a Moongeist Beam is the thing. Maybe leading Ice Rider could have worked in this game. They might Terra now. But I think it makes sense to just follow me again. Yeah. If they follow me Expanding Force, that would be the dream scenario here. That almost KO'd, wow. But it is Rocky Helmet like I suspected. Okay, good. This was a solid turn. I don't think Lunala here should be running Wide Guard, which means I think I can just Tailwind here and Glacial Lance. The main consideration here is whether or not I want to Terra here to get around Moongeist Beam KOing me. I think the answer is no, because I think I want to Terra Water Urshifu. Okay, and we bait out them to Terra, which is fine. Terra Water. That makes sense. Yeah, they Helping Hand here. So that was the other thing. I was thinking if they Helping Hand, even if I Terra defensively with Ice Rider, I still get popped. So I think this ends up working out okay. Crucially now with that Water Terra means my Fire Ogerpon can also just hit you for super effective damage, which is a big deal. So I'm assuming I lose to the Ice Rider here, but I don't think that's the worst trade at the end of the day. Oh, they went Expanding Force. Does this even KO me? I don't think so. Nice. Cool. Well, I'm really surprised they wouldn't Moongeist Beam me there, but I'll take it. Rock Ogerpon comes out now. Okay. 3 turns of Tailwind. I've got Ursh, which is a really good switch in. I think here I would like to go for... Oh, this could so easily Spiky Shield, right? There's still 2 turns of Tailwind after this turn, so losing a Pokemon is honestly not the end of the world. And you can't knock out both of my Pokemon here. Okay, I'm leaning towards Acro plus Glacial here. Oh, they just go for Follow Me. Okay, I mean, that's fantastic. This is going a lot better than expected, honestly. Cool. Okay. I thought they would certainly protect one Pokemon. It could be Trick Room now coming out from Lunala. Let's see if they have it. It is. Wow. So Trick Room, Expanding Force, Meteor Beam. Surely Moongeist Beam, right? So no Protect Lunala? Chiyu. The thing, though, is if I just stall out my own Tailwind, I can just take advantage of your Trick Room. And there's only 2 turns of Tailwind left. And both of these Pokemon are really strong under Trick Room. We're also slowly stalling out Psychic Terrain. I just don't see how my opponent hits Roaring Moon in this game, honestly. Oops, definitely don't want to run. You could Moongeist Beam Heat Wave me, but I don't think that even KOs this. I'm down to Acrobatics into you and Protect here. Okay. Yeah, it's just Heat Wave. I mean, Roaring Moon just completely walls the Lunala here, so... I don't think this even KOs, but let's see. You are +1 actually, and there is the special defense drop, maybe. Oh! We live on 1, although Acro doesn't do a ton in return, but... Crucially, terrain disappears now. Tailwind ends after this turn. Fire Ogerpon's not that important. I think I can just go... I'm just mainly trying to keep in track of all the speeds. The main thing is, like, this dropping special defense is actually kind of scary. I don't know if high horsepower KOs this is, I guess, my primary concern. Let's not run out of time here. I would like to knock off. Switch into Fire Ogerpon. I mean, I might lose both Pokemon here, but then it's a free switch into Urshifu plus... Oh, you know what? I actually think I missed a better win condition here, which was giving up both Pokemon to get Ogerpon plus Urshifu out next to each other, because then I could just go for Follow Me. That also looks like Choice Specs damage to me. I'm pretty sure that's Specs to you, actually. I'm worried about it being like slow Chi-Yu. Our Urshifu's not actually that fast here. Tailwind Peter's out. So now I can utilize their Trick Room to my advantage. But I think I can just Water Terra Ursh here. And just high horsepower. Plus Surging. I'm fairly sure that Specs Chi-Yu. So I think I can high horsepower here, Water Terra Surging. But yeah, the other one condition I was thinking about was sacrificing the Ice Rider, so I have full HP Ogerpon plus Urshifu next to each other. And then I have Follow Me support for the Urshifu, and Water Terra Surging just picks up a knockout onto both. I'm just a little nervous about the speed interactions here and Urshifu getting undersped. Let's see. Okay, we don't miss high horsepower, so that's good. Chi-Yu does survive. I didn't think Chi-Yu would survive that. And they were faster under Trick Room. Oh, if high horsepower was a KO on Lunala, then I definitely should have gone high horsepower into that, but I thought it could have protected. Basically, in the endgame where I give up Roaring Moon and Ice Rider, I have Ogerpon plus Urshifu, so I can go Follow Me, Surging, KO the Lunala, then Protect to stall out Trick Room, and then Surging to KO Chi-Yu. I just thought, yeah, like, we're slow Urshifu here, and high horsepower normally is strong enough to knock out the Chi-Yu, so that was kind of what I was operating under. But given how big of a lead I had in this game, it feels a little bit disappointing to lose, but... Lunala is not exactly a very common Pokemon. I had no idea how the speed stats would shake up there, and I didn't know if high horsepower would KO Lunala either, which is why I didn't go for it. But yeah, the Specs Chi-Yu also just did so much damage here, and then them dropping my special defense was really powerful as well. Maybe I could have gone knockoff into the Chi-Yu then rather than get that extra damage off, but I think Lunala may have just fainted from high horsepower, honestly. But I'm curious how much bulk Chi-Yu had in order to survive that high horsepower, because if you don't survive that high horsepower, we should just win the game there, right? But that was a clutch survival, and that's one of the positions where I wish I had Aqua Jet. So I think that game highlights the value of really unique EV spreads on a Pokemon like Chi-Yu, which generally runs no bulk. As you see here, high horsepower into Chi-Yu. This is what I thought, you know, okay, I just get a one-hit knockout. The Chi-Yu did outspeed Lunala under Trick Room, so it makes sense for it to have bulk, but even if you're max HP, for example, it is still a very good chance to get the one-hit knockout. Chi-Yu lived with even more HP than this, and so it was likely a very, very defensive spread. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were actually like modest max HP, max defense. Like, this would be kind of in range with how much we did with that high horsepower, right? So this spread just completely caught me off guard. The other thing I wasn't sure about in that end game was Lunala, because Lunala is base 97 speed, right? And so Urshifu is obviously also base 97, but we're adamant and only have 92 speed EVs. They have Tailwind on that team, and so I was thinking, oh, it makes sense for Lunala to outpace us outside of the Trick Room. And so I think, yeah, they had a couple of things that were really unique there. The Lunala carrying Meteor Beam. Normally with Meteor Beam, you run Protect and then like triple offense, but they were triple offense with Trick Room. They were slower than our Urshifu under Trick Room and an insanely bulky Chi-Yu. So the combination of all of that allowed them to pull off this really cool comeback, and it's no surprise to see my opponent so high ranked. Okay, we've got Koridon, Flutter, Chien-Pao, Raging Bolt, Ogerpon, and Whimsicott. Chien-Pao is kind of a spooky Pokemon to go up against, and normally into Chien-Pao I really like Urshifu, but they have Rock Ogerpon. This team has a lot of problem Pokemon in my opinion. Rock Ogerpon's a big deal, Chien-Pao's a big deal. Now, if we can get Ice Rider under Trick Room, Glacial Lance obviously looks really strong, and Urshifu being able to attack through Protect makes it a valuable break potentially under Trick Room. If they didn't have Whimsicott, I would consider the Roaring Moon angle. To me, I think I want to go with Fire Palm plus Ice Rider with the Moongus plus Urshifu in the back. But it could be Lando instead. I mean, Sanseer is so good here that I feel like it should be Lando. Yeah, I mean, we don't have... I just think the Sun reducing surging damage is so bad, and it's almost guaranteed that the Sun will be set up in this game with Koridon. I just can't see them dropping that Pokemon in this matchup. Rock Ogerpon is a nightmare because we have a lot of Pokemon that just take super effective damage from it. Ogerpon, Urshifu, as well as Ice Rider. With the Sturdy, the Ogerpon will often be able to get multiple hits off, right? We can't just very easily knock it out and outpace it. The way to deal with the Rock Ogerpon and KO it before it moves is Roaring Moon plus Urshifu, but they could just lead Whimsicott, right? They're gonna go Chien-Pao Koridon, okay. I think I'm okay with this. Hopefully bait out a Fire Terra out from Koridon. Leaning towards just follow me Trick Room here turn 1. Yeah, follow me Trick Room. There's a part of me that wanted to go follow me Glacial Lance to get some damage off initially. They don't Terra Koridon. Oh, I could have gone Glacial. Yeah, that would have worked. What? U-turn. Okay, that explains the lack of Terra. Worried about... if you bring out Whimsicott, you can Encore me. I can just follow me the Encore away, though, I guess. Wow. That was unexpected. Okay. Well, I'm going to respect Encore, so I just follow me Glacial Lance here. Chien-Pao should be the one focus sash, so Glacial should be really strong to everything. They could defensive Terra Whimsicott and reverse Trick Room if they actually had Trick Room on it. I was not expecting U-turn, that's for sure. But I think it's still totally fine. Part of having, you know, these Pokemon, it just means that we have a really good physical matchup, and they led with 2 physical attackers. So even with Sword of Ruin, even with super effective damage, Ogerpon still survives that, which is brilliant. I really do think this is one of the key pieces of the team. So here's follow me. Yeah, not going to get caught off guard by your Encore here. It's like so tempting to want to click IV Cudgel and Glacial Lance there, but like all we have to do is just respect Encore here and we should be in a very commanding position. They also reveal Ice Shard, by the way, which in my opinion is a really big deal because this now means that I don't think you have Sucker Punch because we saw Throat Chop as well. So if you're running Throat Chop, it normally means as we get a crit on the Chien-Pao, which is quite fortunate. Although with the attack boost, we would just get a knockout anyway the next turn. But with the Ice Shard reveal, this is a tech that I've seen a little bit more recently. First of all, I can just bring out the Amoonguss here, pressure things with sleep. But basically with Ice Shard, like, you already revealed Throat Chop. You normally want Ice Spinner or Ice Skull Crash, obviously, and then Protect. So they're going to bring out the Koridon. Yep. That's totally fine. And with that attack boost, I can just Spore you here and Glacial Lance. Yeah. I mean, I guess the one thing this doesn't cover for would be safety goggles, Koridon, but that is a really, really bizarre item to run on Koridon. You normally want like Life Orb, Choice Band, Clear Amulet. We saw Loaded Dice recently as well. But I think in this matchup, they are just really fast-paced, and so we get to take advantage of that. Here's the Terra coming out. Terra Koridon, I would guess into Fire. Yep. Even if you are Goggles here, you would knock me out, but then Landorus can just come out and Water Terra, Sanseer, or Earth Power. Chien-Pao just protects, that's fine. Okay, it's not Goggles, fortunately. There's always that, like, did I just will that into existence, potentially? I think the lack of them bringing Rock Ogerpon was very fortunate for us. In my opinion, that actually is one of the best Pokemon in the entire format against this team. It might not seem like it on paper, but it's really darn good. Cool. They take their sleep turn here. I'm down to just Pollen Puff here and Glacial Lance. They go for a double, but yeah, like I said, I am confident you don't have Sucker Punch given that you reveal Ice Shard. So that just gives us the little bit of chip that we need onto Koridon. We have the attack boost and they have the defense drop here. Double KO. Bang. Very nice. I guess the thing there is I did risk them potentially getting a me low rolling. It looked a little bit close because Palm Puff obviously isn't doing a ton, but like the first Icicle Crash did just under half, so I was like, okay, I just need a little bit of chip damage here. But maybe it's actually still safer to like Rage Powder and High Horsepower there. It's just Glacial covers for Koridon getting an immediate wake and then Chien-Pao trying to attack. But they have Flutter as their last one. Not going to be able to do much here. So, yep. I can just go for Spore onto you. We still have a Lando in the back as well and Glacial. I think the key thing here is that their team is fairly Trick Room weak, and Amoonguss plus Ice Rider just got to do its thing in this matchup. The lead was cool, but yeah, we were able to pretty safely set up Trick Room, and I think one of the great things about this team is having Fire Ogerpon Ice Rider or Amoonguss Ice Rider as a really effective Trick Room lead, and we were able to just, yeah, kind of overrun them under Trick Room. So Rock Ogerpon I normally mention as a problem Pokemon, because it just does a lot of damage and you have Sturdy. So Rock Ogerpon plus Chien-Pao, for example, is actually really scary there because you just pressure with IV Cudgel, immediately knocking out Ogerpon. Ogerpon, by the way, survives IV Cudgel from Jolly Max Attack Ogerpon 100% of the time, but when you factor in, or not 100%, if you don't get a critical hit, it's 100%. But when you factor in the Sword of Rune defense drop, you just KO the Ogerpon. So I think if they led Rock Ogerpon plus Chien-Pao with Koridon plus a fourth in the back, this could have looked very, very different, right? I think Whimsicott actually does make a lot of sense for Encore, but in this game, like when they brought in Whimsicott, it felt so obvious that they were going to try to go for that Trick Room, and I was like, look, all I need to do is make sure my Glacial Lance goes off this turn, and I should be able to just win the game from there, given what I have in the back. Oh, we've got Dozo here. Dozo wheezing with the Calyrex Urshifu Indeedee. This team, of course, got top 16 at the World Championships, piloted by Justin Knox. And right now, with Calyrex Shadow Rider, it feels like the Balancy versions are actually not super popular and being paired with Dondozo. We actually saw solo Dozo with Tinglu being paired with Shadow Rider, but Dozo Tatsu, kind of one of the default ways to run Calyrex these days. So Roaring Moon is obviously exceptionally good here. This could be a matchup where we actually don't even bring Ice Rider, honestly. I think Ursh wants to come out here. It's going to be Grass Terra on Dozo. I think Ogre is a must as well. And I think probably Amoonguss, actually, because Pollen Puff I actually think is a really big deal. I can knock off. Yeah, I'm thinking something like Roaring Moon. This also soaks up Toxic Spikes, which is a big deal. So Roaring Moon Ursh lead with Amoonguss plus Ogre in the back. My general logic in this game is I think Ice Rider is not good into Dondozo unless they Grass Terra, and even if they Grass Terra, it's like Glacial is not doing the most amount of damage. I don't have a defensive Terra on Calyrex that's helpful. It's really weak against Shadow Rider, obviously. But it's going to be Indeedee and Calyrex being led. Okay. Obviously, there is Expanding Force pressure here immediately on turn 1. They could Trick Room on me, which would be really interesting. I obviously have Knockoff. I got Ogerpon in the back, Amoonguss. I don't want Urshifu to just get popped immediately, because I think this is one of my best Dondozo answers. So I'm leaning towards turn 1, go for a Knockoff here. The thing is, I think they could just go Follow Me plus Expanding Force, which is scary. But yeah, I'm going to go for a Knockoff here and Protect. Oh, they switch. Okay. Into Dozo. I mean, getting rid of leftovers immediately I think is fantastic, so I'll take that. They might be Trick Rooming here, honestly. But I do think it's really crucial to get rid of leftovers in this matchup. Oh, it's actually just Dazzling Gleam. Okay. I don't think this one-shots us, though, so it's fine. That doesn't even do half. Wow. Nice. If that's the case, I kind of want to push the tempo a little bit here. They could obviously order up into us here, switch out right now into Tatsu. I could also Trick Room, but if they Trick Room, I can use Amoonguss under Trick Room. We need to conserve this for Calyrex Shadow Rider, so we can't lose it immediately. Like, what I'm worried about is they switch into Tatsu right now. With no leftovers, so I think I want to go Protect, Water Terra, Surging Strikes. This is guaranteed damage on a Dondozo. And they switch. Perfect. Probably into Tatsu, is my guess. Beautiful. Okay, this is really good for us. The question is how much Water Terra Mystic Water Strikes does to Dozo. If it's a 2-hit knockout, that would be incredible because it means next turn I can just Tailwind Surging. I've still got Amoonguss and Ogre in the back. Like, the really scary thing is Shadow Rider can still snowball this game really, really, really quickly, so I still have to be careful. But the main question here is how much do we do to Dozo? Here's Water Terra. Go for a nice Protect here. Oh! I don't even need a Tailwind. Okay. That's good news, because it means I can just Acrobatic Surging Strikes you. I don't think it's a KO, though. It's kind of close. It might be, actually. Okay. Yep, and they order up into us. So before I click Acrobatics plus Surging, I should just think through all the other options, right? They're going to order up. I could obviously switch in Amoonguss here. If I switch in Amoonguss, then I can put Tatsu to sleep, but then Calyrex Shadow Rider just comes out. I think I'm fine just going Acro here. Surging. Ooh, that did not do as much as I would have liked. It's going to be really close. I think it's enough. Okay, nice. Obviously, with the Dozo being so slow, it means that it's very physically defensive. I don't remember the EV spread Justin Knox actually used at the World Championships. But this is obviously huge because Tatsu I can kind of ignore. Yeah, they bring Indy out. I think I can just Tailwind now. Although maybe actually the play I like more is Protect here and Surging Strikes. They're going to commit Terra. Okay. If it's Terra Indy though, and they like try to set up Trick Room, that's totally fine. It's Terra Fairies. They're just trying to have a stronger Dazzling Gleam, I guess, but that's okay. I think this matchup should be fairly favored for us, but I think one of the key things to identify is that we actually don't maybe love Shadow Rider or Ice Rider. They're gonna just Draco us, but that's fine. Yeah, I survive. I think Terra Mystic should just KO here, but let's see. Yeah, beautiful. Perfect. Okay. With this now, Calyrex is your final Pokemon. You're at -2 with Tatsugiri. I can just Tailwind. I think we just Tailwind Surging Strikes Calyrex. Because Tatsu is not going to really threaten me at all in this game. And I was surprised my opponent committed to Terra there on... But I guess they were just hoping maybe they can just get a Dazzling Gleam off there. But we've still got a Moongus and Fire Ogerpon in the back. Fire Ogerpon under Tailwind will be quite good. So I think I can just go for Tailwind here and Surging Strikes into you. Yep, they're going to Protect, try to eat up that knockoff, but this is exactly why we make the Tailwind play. And now this allows my Urshifu to outpace your Tatsugiri. Beautiful. Surgeon comes out. And that's just a KO. Excellent. Yeah, when you play against Dondozo, you just have to be kind of methodical, and I think, like, I brought a Moongus in this matchup. We didn't bring... Moongus and Ogerpon didn't end up coming out, but in a world where, like, Dozo doesn't let me just knock it out as quickly as it happened in this game, I think they're both very important tools in this match. The key thing is also setting up this Tailwind so that I could have the speed control in the late game against the Calyrex, because Calyrex is actually really scary. Part of what makes these teams so powerful is if they get enough damage early on, Calyrex can just come out and just click Astral Barrage into everything and just snowball the game out of control. And our team doesn't have any Ghost Resistances or normal Terras, right, or immunities, and so as a result, it can actually be really spooky, but now I can just go for knockoff in close combat. Yeah. So Moon plus Ursh, I think, feels really, really strong into a lot of these comps. I think, turn 1 ended up working out even better than expected for us, where I thought, like, especially since they had Dazzling Gleam, they had the ability to go, like, Protect Fairy Terra Dazzling Gleam immediately. The upside is Gleam, even with it being so powerful in terms of super effective damage, it's just not very strong coming from an Indy with no special attack investment and as a spread move. But removing Dondozo's leftovers was absolutely huge, and then getting turn 2 right where they combined was huge as well. In my head, though, I think what we took advantage of was just Urshifu in this game. This Pokemon is absolutely... obviously really, really powerful, and the inability to protect in front of it means that with Water, Terra, Surging Strikes, and Mystic Water, like, I'm just getting guaranteed damage, right? Like, it one-shots Indy, it one-shots Calyrex, so when Dozo hits the field and already has taken a lot of damage, like, it's free to target that slot, saying, look, like, I know you can't protect in front of it, even if you combine with Tatsugiri, it's fine, and in this game, we leveraged the knowledge that our Urshifu was still faster than the Dondozo, even after they combined, to say, look, that means that I don't need to set up the Tailwind immediately. But I do think if Dozo survives and knocks out the Roaring Moon, this game is actually really different, because then Calyrex just naturally outpaces my entire team and might be able to just Expanding Force or Astral Barrage everything. So it's really crucial that Roaring Moon survives in order to get that Tailwind up. But I was really nervous it would survive the Acro Surging Strikes double up there. Okay, we have Calyrex Shadow Rider Hyper Offense here, with Tailwind as well as double Fake Out support from Rillaboom, Mienshao, and Chi-Yu. So against Shadow Rider, Roaring Moon is really, really good. In fact, like, I think Roaring Moon is just definitely coming out into this game. The main thing we have to think about is being forced to Terra. If we turn into Flying Terra, suddenly Ghost type damage from Calyrex, Astral Barrage, Heat Waves from Chi-Yu becomes scary. So I think Ogerpon with Follow Me is probably pretty good for support. So this is one of those matchups where, like, I don't even think Ice Rider is really that strong. Because if I'm my opponent, I think I'm definitely bringing Calyrex, I'm bringing Chi-Yu. Maybe Clef. And in the semifinals of the San Antonio Regional Championships, we saw Justin Tang, who won the tournament, straight up not bring his Calyrex into a opposing Calyrex matchup. But Glacial's still pretty good against a good bit of their team. Honestly, though, I am kind of down to not bring Calyrex here because it is not very good into Shadow Rider plus Chi-Yu, and this Calyrex is Fairy Terra, so like Astral, Heat Wave still do a ton of damage. So I can't remember the last time actually on Road to Ranked where we didn't bring our Restricted, but I feel like this is a decent game for that choice because the offense that we have from everything else is still so good. That's part of what makes this team really powerful, in my opinion. Like, even your non-restricted Pokemon feel like restricted, where you're able to one-shot a lot of common Pokemon with them. So, Mienshao plus Chi-Yu works for me. I think with this, I could probably just protect Spiky turn 1. The only scary thing is that Mienshao has Feint. I could just Terra Ogre turn 1 immediately as well. Yeah, do I really need to double protect here? I think protect Terra here is honestly fine. Ivy Cudgel. Mainly because I think it's just like in this position, you should feel forced to prevent the Roaring Moon from, you know, going for an Acrobatics, going for a Tailwind. If they fake out into Ogerpon, so be it. The Fire Terra here covers for them going for a Fire type attack like Overheat. I don't mind committing my Terra this early on because I think Ogerpon having both, you know, the getting rid of the grass typing this early on is actually quite good for us. And I think like Roaring Moon, I don't want to Terra in this game, right? If I knock out the Mienshao, my opponent just has very little damage for Roaring Moon. So this is exactly one of the reasons why Roaring Moon was being used. Yeah, and they just Heat Wave, cool. Chi-Yu moves before Mienshao, so should be Scarf. Beautiful. They just close combat. Perfect. And now you have a Chi-Yu that's Scarf locked into Heat Wave. So I can just pressure like Tailwind this next turn, right? Fantastic. Yep. I'll get you down a Sash. Perfect. They have no switching into Ivy Cudgel, so I think we can just go Tailwind here and Cudgel. I don't know if I needed a Tailwind this turn, actually, in retrospect. I think I could have gone Acrobatics, but they're not going to protect either Pokemon, so this works out pretty well for us. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the alternative play I could have made was actually Acrobatics, or knock off Mienshao, and then just Ivy Cudgel into Chi-Yu. Because, like, outspeeding this turn... Oh, I do need a... Yeah, I don't need to outpace Mienshao if I'm just Acrobatics, right? But here's Heat Wave. No burn, which is great. Okay, awesome. Really good start to the game. And they're going to just bring Clefairy out. Okay. With Clefairy, I do have Knockoff. They could go Helping Hand Heat Wave right now. Theoretically, this could have Moonblast. Calyrex could switch in right now. Basically, I think their plays are Helping Hand Heat Wave, Follow Me Heat Wave, Protect Heat Wave, or Protect Switch. We can kind of always get guaranteed damage off into the Chi-Yu slot with an Acrobatics and a Ivy Cudgel. Okay, I think I'm down for that. Nice, they protect, yeah. I think with this, it's just like the only, like I always get guaranteed damage here, right? The only way they get around it is if they were to go for a Follow Me, but I'll gladly take the guaranteed damage. And then now I can probably just go for Knockoff. Oh, that just KOs. Crit? Not even a crit, okay. To me, the question is what kind of Calyrex set is this for my opponent's end? But I think the reality is I should be able to set up a second Tailwind, which is really big. I also think in this position I could just go knock off Cudgel into Clef. I'm just worried about it getting a double protect off, but I guess we still have 2 turns of Tailwind left, so yeah, I'm going to just knock off Cudgel here. We see the Terra from Calyrex. Yep. It is Terra Fairy. My question is whether or not you have Draining Kiss. Draining Kiss does actually make a lot of sense here. It's Helping Hand. If it's just Helping Hand Astral Barrage, we win the game. Okay, no more Eviolite. I guess the question is whether or not Ivy Cudgel actually KOs here, but let's see. Nice, beautiful. This combo has been so good for us this entire game. Nice, just Astral. Okay, this should not KO Moon, I don't think. Beautiful, which means now I protect. Well, I just bring out Landorus, right? This is, by the way, why I didn't want to bring Ice Rider into the game, because I think Ice Rider becomes a liability into Shadow Rider. You know, they get a special attack boost. We don't, if we commit our Terra to anything else, like, it just gets popped by Astral Barrage, whereas now I just have two things that hit the Calyrex for super effective damage. I think what was big in this game was my opponent not bringing Whimsicott either, because it meant no Tailwind support from their end, and Roaring Moon is just consistently faster. So it's the last turn of Tailwind. I'm just going to protect here to make sure I can get a second Tailwind up, Sludge Bomb into you. They should protect as well, but then we just go Tailwind, Sludge Bomb, and then Surging Strikes. Nah, they're not going to protect here. Almost gets the KO. They just Astral. Yep. Cool. And part of the thing to consider is that even though the Ice Rider we're using has speed investment, it is not outpacing a Calyrex Shadow Rider, whereas an Urshifu and Tailwind will outpace Shadow Rider. In this endgame, it doesn't actually make much of a difference, I suppose, because I would have had Acrobatics anyway, but I do think if you're ever thinking of dropping your restricted, Ice Rider, or with this team, like into Shadow Rider teams is where you should think about it the most. So, yeah, I can just go for Acro here and Surging. Yeah, that just gets the knockout. Nice. So I think this game highlights Roaring Moon's strength. I do think there was a world in which my opponent maybe could have won if they had Draining Kiss on the Calyrex, because if you have Draining Kiss, then you can actually knock out my Roaring Moon. So I'm actually wondering if I should have tried to find a way to play around Draining Kiss and like set up a second Tailwind in the game, because I think if they get Draining Kiss off, there's only one more turn of Tailwind. Oh, but then I knock out Clef, and then I get a free switch into Urshifu, so then I just Surging Strikes you, right? So then the question is whether or not the +1 Calyrex would knock out our Urshifu. We can actually do that damage calc. Let's see. It's hard to say without like knowing the Calyrex's full EV spread, but we can take a look. So if we pull up Calyrex Shadow Rider +1 Astral Barrage into Urshifu. Yeah, it depends on the spread. It probably does just get the knockout here. Like, this is just 84 special attack EVs with Modest, but if, I don't know, they were like Timid, for example, then it's not a guaranteed KO. So it really kind of would come down to the EV spread that they had there, but likely would get the knockout at +1. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much, as always, for joining me. A huge congratulations to Justin and Shiliang and the rest of their team building group and practice group for all the success that they've had. Really cool to feature this brand new composition with Roaring Moon plus Ice Rider in particular, and I'm eager to see where the meta goes from here. So thanks as always for watching. My name is Aaron CybertronVGC, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.